Let's review the good, bad, and ugly from last night's AEW Double or Nothing here on the Squared Circle Psychobabble. My name is Michael Valenti. Joining me is Ralph Valenti. Ralph, there wasn't a lot of bad or ugly. I thought this was a very good pay-per-view, and we're going to break it down for you, starting off with the opening match, Hangman Page versus Brian Cage in a rage that I thought was a really, really good opening match for this show. The crowd was really behind Hangman Page. I think the story being told was really, really good. The fact that Brian Cage loses after refusing help from Ricky Starks and Hook just played onto that as well. Great opening match here, and the crowd was really into it. They were hot for this match.
Yeah, they certainly were hot. I think they picked the right match for the opener just because, Adam Hangman Page is somebody who is definitely a fan favorite, super over with the crowd. The crowd honestly was just great pretty much the majority of the night, except for maybe one match that I have off the top of my head. But the crowd was very good. I mean, and the crowd just makes such a difference. I'm happy to see crowds back. I know that AEW certainly benefited from it last night, and maybe nobody more so than Adam Hangman Page here in this opening match. Good back and forth action. They both looked really good. Interesting turn of events at the end of the match where Brian Cage did not accept the help from his teammates there. Leads you to believe that he's probably going to go his own separate way and leave Team Taz. And who knows what happens with Adam Hangman Page from here on out, but you got to think that they're probably going to build him most likely for the main event picture at some point coming up. So definitely a really good match for sure.
It definitely was. I love Cage's cockiness throughout the match too, doing the curls on Hangman Page and trying to do the buckshot lariat that got reversed into, it looked like an F5. Then when Page tried doing the buckshot, he reversed it into a German suplex. So I guess they both are Brock Lesnar fans, it seems like. But very good match, very stiff, high spots. It was good for any kind of wrestling fan, whatever your personal taste is. I think they touched on all different genres of wrestling in that match.
Yeah, I think their styles really complement each other well, and it made for a really good match, a fun opener. And I think the best thing to come out of this really was the end because, I got to think they're going to pivot away from this feud, which is good for both of them, because Hangman, if he does end up feuding for the title at some point, Brian Cage, the only thing that's going to make that a little difficult is, who does he end up feuding with? Maybe Powerhouse Hobbs, not too sure. Because,
I would think that's how
Ricky Starks is hurt.
Right.
Oh, he's not going to feud with Hook. I don't think so.
No. So, I would agree there. I think probably start with Hobbs, then lead to Ricky Starks once he gets healthy. So I think that's the route they go. But let's head to the next match, which I think might be the most fan invested of the whole night. I think the crowd was hottest for this match. It was the Young Bucks retaining the tag titles against Jon Moxley and Eddie Kingston. They were singing Wild Thing, the Rick Vaughn version. I'm happy they switched from the original to that version. And I love the Bad News Bears jersey for Eddie Kingston, throwing in all these baseball throwback movies. I mean, I love this shit so much I may move to England. That's how much I love that. It was awesome. I thought the match was really, really good. The only thing that bothered me in this match, and some people might call it nitpicking, but it is a problem. Rick Knox must have had amnesia the second half of this match because he forgot how to count. During the beginning of this match, he was counting when the illegal man was in the ring and they're doing double teams and stuff. But then the second half of this match, the Bucks were in the ring almost the entire time at the same time. And the crowd, I would have thought the crowd would have ate into that and booed the Bucks, but I don't think they really did. So they didn't mind it. But that was something that I had a problem with personally.
Yeah. Let me start with the entrances because I don't think this should be understated because I know that, when Tony Khan was essentially announced as Booker of the Year, you got some people that were certainly going to support that. And then you get people that are going to be critical of it. Now, the one thing I will say about Tony Khan is this. It is a smart move on his part to go out there and buy the rights to some of the entrance music for some of the people that we saw, especially last night, because with a live crowd going nuts to Wild Thing, going nuts for Jungle Boy's entrance. We saw that also with Orange Cassidy's entrance. I mean, this is the importance of somebody's theme music and their entrance can't be understated because that essentially is setting the table, setting the tone, setting the mood for what's going to happen. It gets people invested. We definitely saw it here with Moxley and the entrance theme with Wild Thing. People were going nuts. So credit to Tony there. Credit is certainly deserved in that sense. Match itself, I liked it a lot. I thought that they worked the hot tag quite a bit. The fans erupted when Eddie Kingston got the initial first hot tag. I think they worked this back and forth maybe 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
The one thing that I won't say I disliked it, but I thought it could have been done a little bit better was they had so many, they set the table so well for the hot tags throughout the match. I felt like the tail end of the match going into the end where they just kind of hit the, it's not the V trigger.
The BTE
trigger, is that what they call it?
BTE trigger.
Yeah, they hit that move like 3 or 4 times in a row and really just kind of pinned him. And that was the end of the match. So I could have done for maybe a little more drama, a little more like edgier seat, like maybe some false finishes where we felt like Moxley or Eddie Kingston were going to get the win for them.
I don't know. There were a lot of good false finishes, especially at the end.
There were. I just felt like the end came from like kind of out of nowhere. I don't know, but you know, the match itself, it didn't take the end. For me, it didn't take away from the quality of the match. I thought, you know, the Bucks are certainly much better suited as heels. I mean, they get to be their cocky, smart-ass selves. Again, I got to imagine that the attire that they wore was a subtle nod or jab at Shawn Michaels. The backside of their pants was the Rockers. The front side was the attire that Shawn Michaels wore towards the tail end of his career. So they're clicking on all cylinders. They're performing in the ring. Moxley and Eddie are crazy over, especially Eddie Kingston. My God, when he got that initial hot tag, like I said. But good match all around for everybody here.
Yeah, and I will say they evolved with the parodies because they also mocked, or Matt Jackson also mocked Hogan, Warrior, the Shield. Like they did a lot there. So and that stuff just makes me hate them more. I'm glad they took the Dior shoes and did the clothesline off the top rope. So the Bucks are doing their job. I hate them. And Moxley and Kingston, I was supporting them a long, long way for that whole match. I thought they were going to win it, but ended up falling short. But let's head to the next match here. You brought up Jungle Boy. The Casino Battle Royale won by Jungle Boy. This was, I think, the best casino match that they've done in AEW, whether that's the Battle Royals or the ladder matches. I think the flow was good. I don't think there was really too many clunky spots. I think everybody knew where they needed to be. Camera work could have been a little better to follow some of the action. I know commentary lost sight of where Powerhouse Hobbs was at one point. Certain eliminations were missed. But overall, you see Christian Cage as the first person announced, entrant. And you're like, oh, he's going to go from one, go the distance, just like Edge. We kind of saw this happening. But then we got the swerve, and the crowd was really behind Jungle Boy. Outside of maybe Hangman and Orange Cassidy, he probably got the best reaction of the night.
The guy who got maybe the biggest pop, at least during this match, other than Jungle Boy, was Max Caster. When he came out, they popped big. People were going nuts. So that was surprising. But you know what? That's what you can't really tell just based on TV with an empty arena and the wrestlers surrounding the ringside how over somebody truly is. And we've talked about that in the past. You know, he's a guy that is so good on the mic. He comes out, he does his shtick, but it was kind of like to the point where, okay, he's doing this on a weekly basis. Do people like it? Do they not like it? Without a live crowd there, there's really no barometer other than maybe like t-shirt sales and like some online stuff like clicks and stuff that you can really look at. But I mean, that essentially shows you that whatever he's doing is working. Match itself, I do agree. I think that this had the best flow of all the matches that they've had as far as the Casino Battle Royals. I think that they chose the right person to go over here, as you saw with the nod going with Jungle Boy. The one thing that goes in their favor here, obviously some people were critical of the fact that Edge won the Royal Rumble because he's older. With Christian, he can still go and challenge for the title, but he didn't necessarily need to win this in his path or in his route to that title opportunity. He doesn't even need to win that match. So he came out of this looking good, especially because he's like the veteran who's essentially putting over Jungle Boy, especially like hugging him and acknowledging him at the end. So he saves face there. I think that the one thing that I think they can do to kind of enhance the match or the interaction between the crowd and, you know, what's going on throughout the match, maybe announce some of the entrants like per their suit. Because once you see like the hearts up there, or the spade or the whatever the suit is that's going to get called to the ring, you don't really get the pop or reaction that I think you're kind of hoping for until maybe their music hits. So you don't have to announce everybody, but a couple of people.
Didn't they announce people though? Like they obviously announced the first 5. They announced.
I'm saying announce them beforehand. So, like, if you're somebody who's going to be in the Heart suit, and let's say Christian Cage is going to be in the Hearts,
okay.
You know that you're getting Christian Cage within that group. And when it gets shown on the screen, like, you know, you don't get an initial pop or reaction like you would when somebody's music hits. So it just makes it a little kind of awkward as somebody who's viewing it on TV, because you're expecting like a reaction from the crowd and you don't really get that. Even if they flash the wrestlers' pictures up on the screen so you can get a reaction. But, you know, that's a subtle little thing that didn't take away from the match at all. The match itself, I thought, was very good. The right guy, I think, went over. It's going to be interesting to see if Kenny Omega does the honors in putting him over officially, but we will see where that goes.
What'd you think of the Joker, Lio Rush?
I didn't have a problem with it. I think I've kind of learned my lesson with these matches from being a fan of the Royal Rumble with surprise entrances and everything else. Don't set your expectations too high.
Yeah.
I don't think he got like a huge pop when he came out. I thought he was okay. There was a couple botchy weird spots. It was all right. It was fine.
Yeah, that springboard that he was trying to do, the springboard cutter onto Matt Hardy. At least he adapted and like thought off his feet, and then they did the spot over. Some of these guys, if they botch a move, they just botch the move and they don't know what to do. At least he thought on his feet. I thought that was good. Like I said, I think this was the best casino match that we've seen in AEW so far. But, you know, 3 hot matches to start off the show. Unfortunately, the streak did not continue, in my opinion, with the next match. Cody Rhodes does beat Anthony Ogogo in this American versus foreigner match. Cody comes out as the American Dream. He comes out to his old theme music, but it seemed like they added some like pan flute synthesizer sound to it. I don't know what it
was. The recorders. He was marching into battle. Don't you know?
Whatever it was, pan flutes, recorders. It was something like obviously like colonial times instruments in there, and the crowd just did not react to this match. I think the way Cody wanted it to.
Yeah. And that's the note. That's the note I took away from this. I really didn't think the match was all that bad. I thought it was actually a decent match. It's weird because I don't know if the crowd was burnt out from, you know, obviously they had the Bucks match, which they were going wild throughout.
Yep.
You had Jungle Boy winning. You had them going nuts for Wild Thing. You had them going nuts for Jungle Boy's entrance. So and were they kind of burnt out? I mean, and Hangman, they did pop when Cody came out, surprisingly. I thought that was interesting because I didn't know if he was going to get booed because, you know, you do have his cynics and stuff like that, and people are going to criticize him. First of all, let me start with this. I don't think Cody should have gone over.
Nope,
Cody's obviously going to go away and be a father. I think he should have put Ogogo over. And going into this, I know I talked to you before the match and you said the crowd didn't react and they were kind of dead. And, you know, I think it was hard for people to buy into Ogogo because his record's essentially 2-0. I thought he was fine in the match. I honestly thought he held up his end of the bargain. He looked good. I think they could have done a couple of things different. One, the obvious ending. I think that if Cody was really trying to put him over, Cody should have taken a punch and gotten pinned in like the first minute of the match.
Well,
that way you're setting up.
That's the thing. They initially bury him by having him punch Cody and then he kicks out.
Yeah. Yep. I have that note. Same exact note. Look, if you're trying to establish this guy as this dominant force and his one thing that he has to his credit is that he's first of all, Cody took several of his punches, one in the opening sequence of the match, and a clean uppercut, one off the top rope. You know, so what does that say about him? Maybe he's not as good and not as dominant, especially considering he lost the match.
Yeah.
You know, so that's my main takeaway. I think that Cody should have really put him over here. And I think they missed an opportunity here because it's like, now how do you build him back up? How do you build that whole group back up? Cody's gone through all of them.
Yeah,
well, the prominent ones.
Right.
You know,
well, I know this week on Dynamite, they're doing a tag match. It's Cody and Lee Johnson against QT and Ogogo. So perhaps Ogogo gets his win back in that way. But that makes no sense to me. If anything, you have Ogogo, you have the tag match first.
Yeah.
And then Ogogo beat him. Then it leads to Cody getting his win back on the pay-per-view. If you want people to sympathize with the babyface, which is Cody in this regard. But I think this one is kind of getting booked backwards, but Who knows? But
so I'll say this: not a bad match. It really wasn't a bad match in my opinion. I think the crowd was a little burnt out. I think the wrong guy went over. I do think Ogogo does have some talent, and maybe there's something there with him.
Yeah.
But last night just was something wasn't clicking. Right. Whether it was the booking or crowd being burnt out, I'm not too sure.
Right, and I think the next match kind of had similar situations here with I don't know if necessarily the wrong guy went over. But I thought because it was 20 minutes and it was the TNT Championship match, both guys couldn't really take a loss. They could have gone with a time limit draw here. Miro does retain against Lance Archer, and Lance Archer passes out off of the game over from Miro.
Yep.
And this is a crutch that Tony Khan has, especially with big men. It's like, oh, let's push them, let's get them wins, whether they're on Dark or Dynamite, make them look dominant. But then when it comes for the big match, they got to have some kind of finish where he gets passes out during submission and doesn't really tap out, or someone throws in the towel, or there's shenanigans to protect the big guy. Like Tony Khan has a problem booking big men in AEW.
Yeah. I wasn't too hopeful going into this match just because I felt like something like this needed to happen. I mean, Miro comes out of it looking good. I wasn't really into this match all that much, to be honest.
Right.
It started out okay. It didn't really continue throughout the match. Miro comes out of this looking good. Again, Lance Archer, what do you do with him? You're going to have to build him back up, but they've already done that a handful of times now already. So yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, this one here, like I felt like it started off strong, but then just kind of tilted down. And there was the spot where Jake the Snake comes out with a snake trying to get it on Miro. Miro takes the bag and chucks it across. I thought PETA would have came out on Twitter and canceled Miro. I haven't seen any tweets yet, but for the lack of build that it really had, they did the best they could with it. I think it was the shortest match of the whole night.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, I think it was I don't even think it reached 10 minutes. I think it was like 9:20 or 9:22, something like that. But, I mean, hopefully Lance Archer can bounce back from this, because this is now the second time he's failed to win the TNT Championship at Double or Nothing after having good runs with some wins heading into it. I think he could be booked better. I think he's one of those that they're still missing the mark on how to book him. But two people that I think they've done a really good job in booking, Ralph, is Hikaru Shida and Britt Baker. And they had a really good match here for the AEW Women's Championship. And unlike the previous match, this one, I think, started slow, and as it got to the finish, bursted. It was a very, like a boiling pot of water. Started off with the slow simmer, but then once the boiling point hit, they clicked. And that was, I think, the point of that where it really kicked it to the next gear was when Rebel hit Britt Baker inadvertently with the crutch, and you thought, oh, Shida's going to get the win here. You had false finishes. Britt Baker hits the curb stop on Shida on the belt. You thought that was going to end it. No, that wasn't it. You didn't know who to root for. They were both, getting support from the crowd. It was hot, but eventually Britt Baker does get the win. She gets the hug from Tony Schiavone. I thought this was a really, really good match, possibly a match of the night contender, but there were a lot of good matches to say.
There were a lot of very good matches. I thought this match was another good one. Britt Baker, obviously, like we talked about in our pre-show here, or our predictions, I should say, she's come a really long way. The fans are and actually it was interesting because as over as she was, the fans were still acknowledging Shida for all of her efforts. And, people shouldn't forget that. Like, she was the champion throughout this whole pandemic, and she did a really good job, similar to like what Drew McIntyre did, carrying the heavyweight championship in WWE.
Or Bayley with the SmackDown Women's Championship.
Yeah. So I don't want to understate or overlook her title reign, but really I'm truly interested to see how far Britt Baker can take this, because it seems like she's at that level where she's going to ride this wave. She's probably got that approach and that attitude where even if she wanted to be a heel, I think it's going to be very hard for fans to do her. Right. Similar to kind of like the arrogance and the way that Becky Lynch carries herself, until she got to that point where it was like super cringe with what was that? What do they call her? Low key Lynch. Not good, but that's WWE, of course. So Yeah, I'm interested to see where this goes. I'm happy Britt Baker's the champion. It's been a long time coming, but I feel like she's clicking on all levels and all cylinders here. So yeah, good for her.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, what's next for Hikaru Shida? I think, the fact that she went this whole time defending this title without fans and loses in front of fans. I would think they have to play a storyline in there where she tries to win it back in front of fans. Maybe they have the rematch at All Out, maybe at Full Gear, whatever the case may be. But I think this is obviously not the last time we see these two in the ring together. They had a good match in the pandemic era where Britt Baker broke her nose. Shida in this match here was a very good match. So I would love to see them again. And Britt Baker is improving as the time goes on. And she's definitely deserved now to be recognized as the face of the women's division.
I'd agree. Yeah. And you got to think that at some point they got to revisit Britt Baker and Thunder Rosa for the title, I'd imagine.
Yeah, I would think so. Cause I think Thunder Rosa has been racking up wins on Dark and Elevation. So that's what I think it probably would lead to, as long as she's still there. I don't know what her situation is between AEW and NWA, but eventually that's going to lead to something. But we have another impressive showing here on AEW Dynamite. The tag team match, Sting and Darby Allin do go over against Ethan Page and Scorpio Sky. What'd you think of Sting in his first match in 6 years? I thought he looked good.
Yeah, he was fine. I mean, obviously the thing that most people were going to be nervous about here is his health. And then after that, you're probably nervous that, is he going to look at, you don't even want to say good. Like, is it acceptable? Does it pass the eye test? Or you're going to look at it and be like, my God, like he can't perform. But I thought in all the spots he did and everything that he did, it looked safe. It looked fine. The Stinger splash, I mean, going off the rope, stuff like that. That's probably where you'd notice his age, maybe a slight bit, but no, I thought he was fine. I thought he held up his end of the bargain. Conversely, on the other side of the token there, I mean, Darby Allin moves at just 1,000,000 miles per hour, no matter what. His suicide dives or topes or whatever you want to call them.
Yeah.
It's literally like just a reckless cannonball just getting shot out of a cannon there.
Mm-hmm.
But crazy spot there.
He does it better than anybody in wrestling.
He definitely does. But I think that's why he gets so much. Like, it's one thing to do a crazy spot and for people to be like, okay, we want to see the crazy spot. But I think people respect him because he does it. And he's not a big guy. He's like average sized, and he's throwing himself around like that. And it just gets the respect of not just the fans, but the other wrestlers. I mean, him getting tossed, that's quite a far way for Ethan Page to throw him from the ring to the crowd.
Right.
Granted, he only weighs 170, but still that's a far distance.
It is.
I thought the match itself was fine. Sting gets the win in front of the fans the first time in 6 years, which is like a feel-good moment. So
do you think that was the right move, though? Or do you think Page and Sky should have gone over? Because I know in the predictions...
It probably depends.
In the predictions, we said that they should have, but I could see why they didn't.
Yeah, and you got to remember this, too. Like they're always going to do... Their fan base is always going to want them to do the opposite of whatever WWE has done. So the knock on Sting has always been, well, he didn't get a fair shake in WWE mostly because of the loss.
True.
Triple H. Now, should he have? He did have a championship match against Seth Rollins. I don't think he really should have ever won that match, which is what it is. But him getting the win is like AEW's way of showing the fans, like, we take care of veterans. We take care of guys. We're going to show you that. We'll give them opportunities. So he could get a win here, and maybe down the line there'll be some type of rematch, or he could put the guys over on Dynamite. I don't know, but I thought Sting would have taken the pin here. Didn't happen, but he looked okay.
Yeah, he looked good. Darby looked good. And Ethan Page and Scorpio Sky in a losing effort, I don't think really looked too bad. I think they could have done a couple more things to get them over a little bit in a losing effort, but I thought the match was good regardless. So definitely impressive to see 62-year-old Sting looking like probably 42. He didn't look 62. So we'll give him that. But
he pulled a Ricky Steamboat.
He did. He pulled a steamboat, I think. And maybe Mark Henry, now that he's in AEW, could do the same thing.
Maybe.
Yeah. But let's head to the in-ring main event, Ralph. Kenny Omega retains the AEW World Championship with the help of Don Callis against Pac and Orange Cassidy. Ralph, has Orange Cassidy answered the critics here? Is he a main event star? Is he over? Is he connecting with the audience? I think that match might have answered some critics there if he hasn't done it already.
Well, I don't think anybody ever said he wasn't over. We've always said, and I've always said, he's been over with that fan base. Yep. Main eventer, I mean, he's main evented before. He's been in big matches. And again, we've always said he's been a good wrestler. This match went exactly like I expected it to go. I expected Orange Cassidy. The one thing I'll say about the match last night is this. Orange Cassidy finally showed another side to himself where, yeah, you still had some of the goofy shin kicks and stuff like that. That's going to naturally turn off some fans, but he showed emotion.
Yes.
And that was the thing that was always missing for me and for some other people. And am I going to say I'm a fan of Orange Cassidy now? No, but at the same time, we're not getting the Wild Thing moment in Major League where the guy's like, oh my God. And he comes out and they're like, oh, no, we're not getting that. But he played his part just right last night. He got his near falls. He got the fans invested. He got to the point where people actually believed he could win this match. And then you were let down because Kenny Omega snuck the win out, which is exactly what you'd anticipate to happen. You'd expect to happen. But Orange Cassidy finally showed emotion. There was a point in the match there where he was literally fired up and the fans were getting fired up. And that's what people connect with. It's hard for people to connect with somebody who, one, doesn't show emotion, two, doesn't talk. So literally you either have to buy into it, his demeanor and his character and say, oh, I just get it. Or you're just like, I don't get it. Right. But if you show some emotion or you talk and stuff like that, then it's easier for people to get invested in you.
Yeah.
The match last night was very good. Very, very good. I almost said main event. Very, very good championship match last night. All guys worked hard. Exactly what I expected out of it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And the spot and this is a nod to the crowd too, because one thing that I'm not a fan of with today's crowds are they chant stuff like, this is awesome, we want tables. They chant for things match related and not wrestler or character related. And I think last night, the crowd really rooted for characters. And this match, you have them chanting Orange Cassidy, which was one of the rare occasions where they actually were behind a guy. They would chant Freshly Squeezed before the pandemic. But when Don Callis pulls out the referee on what we thought could have been the 3 count to Orange winning the title, and you have the crowd chanting, F you, Don. F you, Don.
Yeah.
That's what I want to see. That's the emotion that's missing in wrestling today. Boo the heels, cheer the baby faces. It's such an easy dynamic that to be a heel, it's I'm cool. I'm the cool heel that people are going to eventually cheer me, kind of what we got with Britt Baker. But with Kenny Omega, they're booing him. They're booing Don Callis. They're booing the Bucks. They're booing, Anthony Ogogo. They're actually booing heels last night. And that is something that needs to continue as we get fans back on these shows.
Yes, I'd agree 100%. Don Callis played his part really well. Kenny Omega is, depending on who you ask, I mean, whether his run was or is disappointing or on par, whatever, you're going to get all types of answers. Last night was a very well worked match by Kenny, Pac, and Orange Cassidy. Yes. Everybody did their part. And I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I agree. But let's head to the main event, Ralph. The Stadium Stampede, the Pinnacle versus the Inner Circle. If the Inner Circle lose, they would have to break up and dissolve. But it's Sammy Guevara that saves the day here, and this is kind of like a redemption. Sammy Guevara was the one that took the pin last year at Stadium Stampede. He's the one that quit the Inner Circle when MJF was in the group. He also was the one that was getting chased by golf carts. He ended up chasing Sean Spears with a golf cart. So there was a lot of redemption story for Sammy Guevara, and he really got over in this match, I think. I thought, compared to last year, the wrestling and the action and the tone of it was better. The only thing I did not like was the production of this. And what I mean by that is okay, so we start with MJF and Chris Jericho, and they do their little 10-minute segment wherever they are in the stadium. Then they cut to Hager and Wardlow, and they do their little segment. Then they cut to Guevara and Spears. And then they cut to Ortiz and Santana with FTR. And it was like, there was no like a match like this where the pin could happen anywhere. I feel like they could have done like how the Red Zone does it in the NFL, where you have quad boxes and, three-way, stuff like, so you always are following action as it's going. And I felt like it was just very, yeah. And it made the production, the pace of it slower than it really was.
Almost like you're cutting. You're making specific segments and kind of post editing and putting it together. I mean, I didn't necessarily find a flaw in the flow of the match. I definitely agree. I think the tone of this match wasn't so much like goofy fun. It was right what it needed to be. This was a grudge match where guys were trying to kick each other's ass, and it also had some subtle nods and fun moments as well. Mm-hmm. I loved Hager and Wardlow, the brawl that they had. I thought there was a lot of cool spots, and I think a lot of times people can be critical of AEW, like with the crash pad and the explosions. And I think in this match, it really highlighted that, you know what, they showed that certain times they can do good production and put a show on or a match on like this that does look good. I mean, you go back and look at like the part with the meat locker and stuff like that with the hanging pigs, like little things like that help kind of enhance the match. So I like that. I love the part where FTR and Santana Ortiz were brawling, and then you got Conan as the DJ.
Yep.
Something as small as, I forget who it was off the top of my head. I think it was Cash, who was throwing the glass bottles, I think, at Ortiz. Mm-hmm. Just little things like that. I mean, so this match was very good. It felt like a grudge match. And the main thing, and this was the thing that I liked most, not just for this match, but throughout the entire night. I think a lot of times AEW gets criticized for coming across as like overly goofy, and you get that criticism. Last night was fun in the sense that it was fun to watch a pro wrestling event where it was still taken seriously, and the fans were invested. And that was evident throughout the entrances with the theme music and straight through to this main event here, where it was serious, but at the same time it was fun and enjoyable.
Yes, I agree. And obviously Sammy Guevara gets the pin over Shawn Spears. So storytelling wise, it makes sense. But I think at the same time, the Pinnacle now, they haven't had, they won Blood and Guts, but they haven't really established themselves as a threatening faction. And yes, the Inner Circle have been together since the beginning of Dynamite, and the Pinnacle have just formed. So you could always play that, they're not really as experienced as a faction yet. But I felt like the Pinnacle could have won this match, tell the story with Jericho leaving to do a tour, Sammy Guevara being the guy that takes the pin or whatever the case may be, and go that route. I don't know where the Pinnacle goes from here when you've already lost the big match in the main event. Like, that's not being always on top. You lost, especially early on in your run.
Yeah, you lost in this certainly it seemed like the stakes were much higher in this type of match than it was in Blood and Guts.
Yeah.
Because there was a lot on the line for the Inner Circle. Now, I don't know what direction they're going to go with the Pinnacle, but I do agree, and I touched on that. Aside from MJF and FTR, like Shawn Spears, okay, well, they didn't really do much to develop him, and he also took the pin last night. Wardlow, he's a big guy who probably has a lot of potential, but what are they doing to really elevate that? Not a whole lot. So, yeah, I got to agree. I don't know where the Pinnacle goes from here. I hope they have some type of way to work through that. Maybe they add a new member. I don't know who that could be, but it should be somebody that's going to be a difference. Yeah, or I saw people talking about maybe Tessa. Mark Henry. I don't know, somebody that's going to make a difference.
Right.
That's what they need.
Yeah, I agree. Something needs to happen there. Hopefully they do something on this upcoming episode of Dynamite where they follow up with this and see what the plan is for the Pinnacle from here on out, because right now they're not on top. So we got to build them up to get on top. And maybe their focus is MJF goes for the AEW Championship. FTR goes for the tag titles. Sean Spears goes for the TNT title. Something like that. Either way, that should work. But overall, Ralph, what would you give a grade, to this? I put a poll up, and I think a majority gave it an A. Would you give it an A, or what would you grade it?
Yeah, I would probably grade it an A, because honestly, there was very few moments that I disliked. I don't even know if I really disliked anything. There wasn't really a bad match per se.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I thought it was a very good, entertaining match. I think a B or an A is a fair grade for this pay-per-view.
Yeah, I agree. I think this show was very, very good. Other than like Cody winning in that match and Miro and Archer, that kind of like calmed it down a little bit. The crowd was invested all night. They were singing along to all the big songs. They were supporting the baby faces, booing the heels. I thought that was great. The commentary was solid. Camera work for the most part was good. Wrestling was, I didn't really see too many botches. So I thought this was an A. I thought this was an A show. And I think the fact that fans are back just added to it. And it was a great way to bring the fans back. So I'm happy for that. But let us know in the comments what grade you would give AEW Double or Nothing. Don't forget to share us all over social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at SCPB Podcast. Subscribe to join the conversation, and we'll see you on the next episode of the Squared Circle Psycho Babble.